Welcome back, ladies. Welcome to our second month. And congratulations for getting through the first month of really crystallizing what that dream is in our heart and really starting to pay attention to those desires that we hold so deep. And congratulations for doing a lot of the digging, because I think, the first month was about really digging about what is it that we desire and what is our purpose here. So we're entering a new month, and what's really important for me is for you to recognize that your dreams are so important, that they matter so much, that it should convince you of your worthiness, because your dreams are so unique to you, and they're not here as a pipe dream, but they're here because they're meant to be fulfilled. And if nobody fulfills it, then nobody can. Only you can do it. So that should be a really important take-home point, because as we go through and go back to some of the lessons over and over again, it takes a while to switch our old habits of thinking into new modes of thinking. And so this is going to be so important for us to recognize that we have a whole entire, excuse me, the camera. We have a whole entire, I would say, appreciation of that dreams are so important and that we can't here to take a chance at it. Okay, so as we begin the second month, welcome. We're going to focus now on not our dream, but ourselves. The image we hold of ourselves. The whole entire month is going to be dedicated to building our self-image and what that looks like in a really deep level. So my goal is to clarify the crisis and the war against our worth. I'm going to help us connect the dots. Number 2, we're going to talk about how our self-worth is shaped. And number 3, our duty for the next generation. And so this is sort of a bit of a overview, but also a foundational class for the next 5 weeks that we're going to tackle our self-image. So get ready. There's a lot of science here that I'm going to delve into. So first of all, what does self-worth mean? What does it mean to you? Because most of the time, this is the image we see. I can do it all. And doing it all equals strong. And strong equals worthy. And this is all happening in our subconscious brain that we don't even realize that we don't want to ask for help, because that would mean we were weak, or we want to make sure everything looks perfect in our house because that means we can do it all, and that means strong. And so I want you to ask yourself, what does self-worth mean to you on a personal level? Okay. And so to further describe this, I'm going to give you examples, because I think it paints the picture so that we can get familiar with really where our worth is so connected to our day-to-day life. Because a lot of times we don't realize our self-worth is connected to the way we dream, the way we make decisions, the way we communicate with everyone. And so here's a few examples, and I want your wheels to start turning. It means that our boss chews her out. She cries in the corner, but she's resentful, but she puts up with it, right? She doesn't realize her value. She just puts up with somebody being critical of her in front of everyone. She works in a stressful environment. She puts up with it because she doesn't really think she deserves any better. She can't ask for a raise because she feels bad and feels undeserving of a raise. Her boyfriend is checking out other women, and she says, well, I guess that's normal. She convinces herself that she doesn't deserve any better. Her husband does not help out in the house. She puts up with it because she thinks, well, I can do it all. I'm worthy of that. Her husband is sarcastic and makes fun of her. She does not hold him accountable because she thinks, well, why would it matter? Why would it matter that he is making fun of my value? Because we don't understand our worth. Or her son is disrespecting her. She makes excuses for him. She can't dream big because she's so afraid that she's going to fail, because really, she's really afraid of what everyone else thinks of her. She finds a job based on what her parents think or based on money, not because of what she believes she wants to do or what her dream is, because money or her parents' approval and opinion makes her feel worthy and appreciative. So these are examples that are so important for us to understand. Like, wait a minute, how am I walking into this? And how is it that my husband's on the screen right now? How is it that I am also making other women feel as though they're not worthy? Okay. And it's important for us to recognize this because this is happening all around us. So let's define self worth. My own personal subjective opinion of my value. It determines what I believe I deserve. It was shaped by how the people around me revealed my worth. Okay, so a lot of big hitters here. It's subjective, which means that my worth is something that was shaped based on my experience growing up. And it was revealed to me. It was not something I have come to know on my own. It directly affects my choices, my decision, my behavior, and really my future. Because our choices affect our decision affects our behavior, and it's a compounding, all of that creates our future, doesn't it? So when we don't understand our value, it actually affects our future. It affects our present moment because it affects our choices because we can't hold everyone else accountable around us. So really important for us to remember and to recognize when we talk about self-worth is that our worth is revealed. Our worth is revealed initially by our primary caregivers, which looks a lot like our parents or our kind of immediate family. We cannot come to know our worth on our own. Just as we come to know love through a relationship, we come to know our worth through that same relationship that reveals to us our own worthiness. When we're babies, we don't know we're valuable unless somebody actually appreciates us, affirms us, respects us, acknowledges us. Otherwise, we would never know that we're valuable. How else would we know? We can't. It is based on a relationship, just as love is based on a relationship. And it's so important for us to recognize that because we blame ourselves all day long. But what we have to recognize is that our worth was revealed by the people around us, and it continues to be revealed by the people we choose to be around us. Okay? Because if we're feeling unworthy and we've got shame issues and the people around us are toxic and they degrade our worth, we're constantly surrounding ourselves with people who are making us feel unworthy. So, how was our worth shaped? Really, since we were born. Babies did not earn their worth. And I call this the 5 stars. When you look at your baby, if you're a mother out there and if you look at this baby, nothing that the baby does, that says, in order for me to be accepted, I need to not cry. We accept them regardless. And we don't only accept them, we appreciate them. We say, oh, wow, I love being around you. And not only does that baby say we appreciate them, they actually need to hear our acknowledgement because you can't just say, oh, I love you, but I don't need to say it. No, we need to communicate our affirmation and our affection. We need to be acknowledged. It's like if you walked in the room and you're the 5, 6-year-old and your dad never tells you I love you, but you're saying, well, I know my dad loves you. Well, no. We all deserve acknowledgement. And then what happens is that we put up with our husbands or boyfriend not acknowledging us because our pattern is foreign. Affirmation, which means, wow, I don't only appreciate you, I love being around you. I love you. Who you are is good, right? And that's what we feel when we think of a baby. And the last thing of the 5 stars is admiration. And what admiration does is that I look at my baby and I say, you're so powerfully impactful and amazing that who you are changes me as a woman. And that's what I feel. When I look at my babies, I think, wow, they change me. And that's what admiration does. Just as when your spouse admires you, it changes you and it brings out the best in you. And so this is what a baby deserves. Now, what happens is that what did we have to do to earn appreciation? Did we have to please them? Did we have to be perfect? Did we have to prove that that we don't cry in the middle of the night? Did we have to produce anything? Did we have to perform? Nothing, right? And so what happens is that when we grow to be 7, 8 years old, something changes. Conditions begin to arise. We start to now see that we win our parents' attention, our friends' attention if our grades are good, or we, are popular, our opinions, or if we maybe do really well in sports and our teachers really love us, or what kind of clothes we wear, or our status. There's a switch, and all of a sudden, we now have to prove, perfect, produce, please, and perform. And it's starting to happen. And it usually goes around about 7, 8 years old. And there's a switch that happens, and it's no longer unconditional. Okay. And so now we go into our teenage years, and then there's more conditions. The boys, the body image looking perfect, the magazines, the popularity, the grades, the performance. And now we have to please everyone else around us. So now the fact that we only get accepted into a certain tribe if and when we please the popular crowd. We only get acknowledged if and when we maybe, do really well in the game. All of a sudden, all these conditions are now placed on our worth. So this little baby that never had to earn her worth, as a teenager, have to earn her way to acceptance, appreciation, affirmation, acknowledgement, and admiration. Forget admiration. I mean, admiration is sort of like, what? I'm a teenager and who I am impacts you and changes you as a human being. But do they deserve it? Do we deserve it as a teenager? And I would dare say yes. So now let's look a little bit. How is a woman's worth shaped? Let's look at how our brains are shaped. So our brain is an artifact. It's a record of our past experiences. And what it is it's 100 billion neurons in our brain. And if you look at those wirings, all of those neurons are wirings. And so what happens when we're a baby is that this is how languages are learned, is that we realize, oh, that's a pencil, right? And that through the process of repetition, we now know that this is a pencil. A neuron is actually wired into our brain, and that's how we know that that's a pencil. Well, our self-worth, by how it was revealed, also becomes a set of neural connections. And so now, well, if I please my parents, then I get attention the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time. Now that becomes a neural connection, which is a pattern. And if you look at the right side, you see those wirings that are connected at first, just like you learned this was a pencil. You didn't know that this was a pencil through the process of repetition. And through the process of repetition of proving, pleasing, perfecting, performing, producing, that becomes a neurological wiring in our brain. And what happens is that our self-worth right now is a set of neurological wirings that fired and wired together for years. We have been wired to prove, perfect, produce, please, and perform. So when you think about our self-worth, it's actually was developed through years and years, and now it's developed to become this habitual unconscious response. We don't even really know that it's happening. It's just happening because through years, for us having to prove and get our parents' attention, and all of a sudden we get a reward for getting an A, right? It's sort of like driving. When you first learn how to drive, you had to remember how to turn around, you had to turn the steering wheel, to press on the gas, all these different things. And now try to unlearn driving. You can't. You get in the car, you know exactly what to do. Why? Because that's been a neuron that's wired and fired for decades, and you don't even know how to undo it. That's like our self-worth. And that's how our worth was programmed to prove, perfect, perform. Just like a keyboard. If you type on a keyboard, I can't even tell you where letter J is, but my body, my hands can tell you where letter J is. Try it. And if I can tell you where A is, can you even memorize in your head where A, B, C is? You can't. But your body actually knows it better than your mind right now. It's so subconscious. Ladies, this is how our self-worth was wired into our brains. So what happens is that first it goes into the 95% of our brain. Our brain is divided into a conscious and a subconscious mind. Conscious mind is 5%. Sometimes people say it's 7, 10. But the point is that the subconscious brain of ours takes the majority amount of our mind, which means everything that we've learned through the process of repetition now gets buried into our subconscious mind. Now, the way you've come to understand your worth, the way you were proving everyone pleasing, and the way your cup was full, of affection and appreciation determines how you've been wired. Your self-worth was wired for decades. This is really powerful for us to understand. Now, there's three ways that our self-worth are shaped. Number one is our family. Through the labels we have heard, I'm so bad at math. I'm so bad at talking in front of people. Or you're such a troubled kid. Or you're so annoying. We might hear it from our sibling. Or maybe the criticisms that we hear. Or the comparison. That's often families don't realize they're doing it. Oh, she got an A in this and he didn't. Vice versa. Or we're only appreciated and celebrated if we get a good grade or if we do things good. And so all these are now what? The process of repetition gets wired in the 95% of our brain. So here's the thing. In our primary years, we deserve acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement, affirmation, and admiration. And so our cup gets full, right? But if our cup doesn't get full, as we grow, we still equally deserve acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement. This is why we want to be accepted in our friends. This is why we seek friendship where we want to know that who we are is good. We want to hear our friends say, you know what, I love being around you. Because that same exact need as a woman does not really go away. We're not meant to be an island. We're not meant to be in isolation. We're meant to work in collaboration. And our worth is constantly getting revealed to us. But the problem is that if it was revealed where we had to earn our worth, that becomes a neurological wiring and a pattern. And now we grow up having to actually prove our worth, please, as a habit. And so here's an exercise that I want you to actually go through. I want you to go through a list of these people, and you can name, and add, subtract people here, and just kind of see, did you feel accepted? Did you feel appreciated by your mom, dad, sister, brother? Acknowledged, which means they actually communicated that you're good. Did you feel affirmed? And did you feel admired? Admired is one of those things that are often so hard for women, but it's probably the most critical one. All of which are critical because it builds upon the other. Because admiration says, oh, it says, wow, who you are is so worthy. It's so irreplaceable that nobody is going to be ever you, that you change who I am. And so I want you to use this exercise and go down and pattern and just see the patterns. And really what I want you to do here is ask yourself, was my cup full? Because if it's not full, then chances are we're compensating it elsewhere. Now we're trying to win our boss's affection and appreciation, and it's coming out in ways that's unhealthy because this cup was never full. So just go down this exercise and you can take notes and really you can just check it. And then take notes and you say, you know what, maybe I had to prove my worth to my grandparents so that I feel like they were proud of me. But were they proud of you regardless of what your performance was in your basketball game? And then see the patterns with your spouse and your children. Because I just heard a story that news broke out that some of the Hollywood actresses were paying the colleges, Ivy League colleges, for their children to get accepted. And they were rigging some of the stats so that their kids can get accepted. My first thought is that our worth are so conditional to our children's performance that we're willing to break a law to really make us feel as though we've done such a great job as a parents because our worth is dependent on our performance and our perfection that we're willing to actually break the law and rob our children of hard work because they had to earn it. They could just walk in and get a free pass. And this is so important because we don't realize that our worth is so connected to our choices and our decision, because if we do not understand our value from an objective perspective and that we have to please, perform, perfect, produce, then that means we are always constantly in the space of lack because our worth is always subject to everyone else's around us performance, our performance, and there's no peace. I mean, think about having to, and I don't know the whole situation about that college, but it's an important thing to recognize that we want to feel so valuable, that we feel so invaluable as ourselves, that we need to show the world that our production, that our children becomes a source of production, that it makes us feel worthy of good. And it's a fake It's an emptiness because it's not even truthful. It doesn't have the integrity. How many times does this happen? So second is our environment, our worth is shaped by our environment, our friends, how popular we are, our community, our school, and our grades. And this, what happens is that when our cup isn't full when we're young, when it's shaped and we don't feel the admiration, affection, appreciation, we begin to compensate when we get into our, elementary years, and we start to win everybody else's affection and appreciation. But not only that, is that we actually need to have a conversation. Somebody needed to talk to us about our worthiness so that we don't compensate, so that the opinion of our friends doesn't become our opinion of ourselves if they're bad opinions. And so all these things are happening in a world that's going so fast, and our world has dramatically shifted. Our world right now is so busy, it's so hectic, that most of the time our parents don't have time to debrief. And so how many times are there unspoken conversation where we assumed other people's opinion to become our worth? Where our friend says, you just really, dumb. And nobody talked to us about the fact that, no, that does not me. And even if I, didn't get a good grade, that doesn't equal dumb. But we internalize it and it shapes what we believe we are worthy of. It shapes our worthiness. So how many times are our environment shaping our worthiness and wiring it into the 95% of our brain, our culture? So if you're reading People magazine and everybody's competing, comparing, this person's outfit is 25% and I get approval rate and this one gets 65. I mean, the comparison and competition. And so then it's wired in our 95% of our brain to compete and compare. Or in our subconscious mind, now appreciation and admiration and acknowledgement look a lot like Instagram followers and likes. And so now all of this, from our little girl who never had to earn her worth to that, 7-year-old who now starts earning her worth from everyone around us, to the teenager, and now to the cultural expectation. I mean, we're just getting attacked and pummeled from every arena. That our self-worth is getting pummeled on a daily basis. So if it's not strong, then everyone else around us is determining our value. Because remember, it's our subjective opinion of ourselves. And if we have allowed our family, our environment, our culture's opinion of ourselves to become our opinion of ourselves, and they're not good, and that determines our choices and our behaviors, now we realize, wait a minute, I'm not living the life that I want. And I'm not living the life that I want because I actually do not understand my value as a woman. And I have been pummeled for years and years and years, and I did not even know it. Okay, here's the thing, is that this is from Dr. Thurman Fleet, and it's an image of our brain and our body and our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. It doesn't reflect the 5 and 9 represent. But what's important here is that our body is an instrument of the mind. And our body determines our result based on our mind. So if you really think about it, the story we are living was shaped by what we believe you're worthy of. And so right now, your current present reality has everything to do with how your self-worth was shaped and continually is being shaped. And so whatever arena you feel like you're stressed because you have to prove that your life needs to be perfect, or that you feel really bad because you didn't perform well, or you did not make enough money, or you had to prove your value to your spouse or to your boyfriend, all that comes from decades of neurological wiring in our brain. And that's really important, because can you unlearn driving? It's really hard, ladies. Can you unlearn even knowing where the keyboards are? So we actually have to rewire our self-worth. This is really, really important. Because right now, I am only worthy if and when ... That I need to prove myself in order to deserve the good that I want, based on my family and my environment, my culture. It is now conditional. So what are the cultural expectations of people that are worthy of admiration? What are those cultural conditions? Well, women who are powerful get a lot of admiration and acceptance, right? Or women who look perfect. We think of the external, I would say, external appearance of women, or what their house looks like. If it is perfect, then all of a sudden they're worthy of admiration. They're worthy of appreciation. And that's cultural. So it's automatic. We just, as a cultural, have, top 10 most beautiful women in the world, and they're worthy of that. appreciation according to the culture. That's not what I believe we should. Or possession. Money becomes a sense of worthiness. Money becomes a status. So women that are not making money, they don't feel quite as good about themselves, which is so wrong, because our wealth should not equal our worth. I'm going to say that again. Our wealth should never equal our worth, because a woman is making $20,000 working her tail off, trying to, a single mom, trying to maybe, clean houses or do part-time job, should not feel equal. Should not feel less worthy and deserving of all that's good. And because our worth is shaped by the fact that of possession, now we don't feel quite as good about who we are when we don't have the power, the possession, the influence, right? The position. So a mom might not think they're quite as good because they're not a CEO. Well, or a CEO might not feel she's as good because she's not staying home as a mom. This is where the wars are happening. Our worth is so conditional, and we've sort of created this in our culture collaboratively, unknowingly, subconsciously, and now it's just a norm, right? We acknowledge people. Why do we acknowledge people that are teachers and put them in magazines, or acknowledge single moms, right? And so now we have sort of this backward effect, or the popularity. And so a woman is looking at her Instagram feed or Facebook, and she thinks, I only have 2,000 friends, or 800 followers, whatever the number is. They don't feel good about who they are, and they feel awful, right? Today, women have to earn their worthiness. They have to please, perfect, perform, produce, improve. And so your average woman who has 3 kids, and for myself, 6 children, or your teacher, silently and secretly feels as though they're not quite as good enough, because they don't have the cultural expectation of what makes a woman worthy of all that's good and beautiful, which looks a lot like power, possession, perfection. And that is not okay. Because every woman should feel and worthy of good. We should create distinctions, because it is not okay for a mom or a CEO to feel less worthy of all that's good because of their performance. This is why CEOs also have one of the biggest, highest depression rates, because so much is depending on their performance, and their performance, they internalize as their worth. And so when they don't perform well, they start to feel bad about who they are. Well, no, you just made a bad mistake or a bad quarter, just like moms make mistakes. And this is why, as mothers, we feel so guilty. We internalize the fact that we made a mistake, because making a mistake makes us feel less worthy. No, making a mistake is part of growing. But what happens is that maybe when we were, 3 or 4 years old, when we made a mistake, we were criticized, or we weren't acknowledged, because we were only acknowledged when things were looking perfect, when we dressed perfectly, when we act perfectly, when we behave perfectly. And now that becomes a neurological wiring in our brain, and we don't even know it. Now your woman who's single or in a working environment can't hold your man accountable, can't hold your boss accountable, because she's just hustling to earn her worth. This is really, I want you to connect the dots. So here's what I want you to do in this exercise in your PDF, is that I want you to check for patterns, right? Did you have to please your mom in order to receive their admiration? Did you have to look perfect? Did you have to produce? Did you have to pretend to be someone else? Did you have to prove? And go down the list with your dad, your sister, your brother, and go down to your boss, your coworkers, your community, your tribe, and just see if the patterns are there, or where did the pattern shift? Because somewhere there has to be a shift when we started to have to earn our worthiness that's costing us our freedom. So check where the patterns are shifting. Women are programmed to earn their worth. Now, in order to deserve acceptance, appreciation, acknowledgement, affection, and admiration, we have to hustle. What happens when a woman is constantly having to earn her worth is that hustling for her worth feels a lot like on survival. It feels like being chased by a lion. There's no freedom when you're hustling. When you're surviving, when you're just trying to protect your worthiness and who you are, you're not really thinking of everyone else. It actually makes us really selfish. Stress is the byproduct of us being in survival. And stress makes us being selfish, because a woman that's selfish a woman that's stressed is just trying to survive, right? If a lion was chasing you, you're not thinking, how can I help this friend? How can I help this friend? No, you're just thinking, I'm going to run. And so when you're in survival mode, all you're thinking is trying to protect your family, trying to protect yourself, trying to just do all this stuff, and you can't think outside of your family or your friends. And that's what it makes us selfish. And we don't even see recognize this. And so when we're earning our worthiness, it equals stress because it feels like a lion is chasing us all day long and we're just trying to breathe. And so what I want you to think about right now is to give yourself the permission to recognize that it's okay, that you've been programmed and trained like this for decades and decades. So if you're feeling the stress, the anxiety, and all the suffocation of being a woman right now and all the decisions you have to make, it's because you've been programmed that way. And so what we need to do is that, yes, we just need to see it for what it is and then take responsibility to replace these old conditions so we can change our future. Otherwise, we repeat the same pattern. And of course, we don't want that. So here's your, I would say, pattern. This is from Psych Health, is that when you're never good enough, when you don't feel like you're good, when you don't feel like who you are is enough, it puts you into a scarcity mode, which releases stress hormones. That stress hormone changes your physical, literally your body. It's like if you're eating all organic food and you're stressed, it doesn't matter. It changes your psychology. It changes every single part of your body. This is the seed of depression. This is the seed of anxiety. And this is why we have 19% of women in college campuses attempt suicide. And that's the second leading cause of death in college campuses. So 44% of American college report depression syndrome. 5 million young females suffer eating disorder a year. I mean, 1 out of 65 women die out of an eating disorder. I'm sorry, one in every 65 minutes die from a complication of eating disorder. I mean, this is really important. We need to connect the dots here. 40 million of adults are affected with anxiety and stress. It's a $2.7 billion industry. What I need you to do is to connect the dots that when we don't feel like we are worthy, we are in a constant state of lack. When you're in a constant state of lack, it puts you in a stress mode. And when you're stressed, it's a seed of depression, anxiety, suicide, and everything else. And it's a vicious pattern. Okay, ladies. So what we need to do is to replace the proving, the perfecting, because it's exhausting and it's leading to our present day story, which is drinking, drugs, anxiety, resentment, shame, eating disorder, right? And so your average woman right now is really putting a mask. We have a mask because we are just trying to survive the fact that we don't feel as though we are worthy of good. And so we don't feel as though who we are is enough. And so this is why we try to buy our children getting into a good college because it makes us feel good about who we are. So now there is a mask. And what that mask is obviously a lack of authenticity, which never leads us to freedom. So here's our common story. And I need you to see this, ladies, because we need you. Our past, 100 years ago, women could not vote. There was no choice. There was no voice. There was no freedom. Women had no worth. Present day reality, we can vote. We can choose. We have a voice. We have freedom, at least in the Western world. The problem is that we're really not free because if you look at the stats of depression, anxiety, suicide, it does not equal freedom because freedom should look a lot like joy. Freedom should look a lot like peace, and it's not. And here's the problem. Self-worth, as we know it today, is conditional. We have freedom, but we are not free because our worthiness is conditional. So 100 years ago, we did not have worth. Now, present day, we are only worthy only in if and when we can perform, perfect, prove, pretend, produce, and prove to the world that we have arrived at their expectation to be worthy of all that's good. That is called a prison. And so what we need to do is to move into a generation in the future, which should, for so many women, look a lot like joy, collaboration, peace, and internal freedom. Because we cannot hand in a next generation of women that are depressed and anxiety and in constant survival mode. We owe it to the next generation to change the culture for women's expectation. We need to move into a culture where women's worth is unconditional. And that is my mission. And that is what I am asking you to join me, is that we need to change the future generation. And we owe it to our previous generation of women to actually build on their fight for freedom. They fought for freedom. We need to fight for a new layer of freedom, which looks a lot like internal freedom, so that you are no longer conditioned to your performance, perfection, and to prove to the world you're worthy of all that's good, regardless of your mistake, regardless if you look perfect or 30 pounds more or less, right? And that should never change our worthiness of appreciation, attention, affection, admiration, and acknowledgement. Because all that we continue to deserve. Because no woman can live without somebody's appreciation and affection and attention. We create monsters. This is what makes us angry and resentful and vindictive, is because we really wanted and deserved and needed those basic human needs. And nobody's saying this outside, but I'm telling you, we need appreciation. That we can't just pretend we love our daughter and never appreciate them, or never acknowledge their appreciation, never affirm them and tell them that they're good, or never allow them to feel our admiration. And so if you're a mom out there, I want you to make sure you communicate your admiration towards your children and your spouse to protect them from self-sabotaging their worth. Here's our story. No worth, no freedom, past, present, conditional worth to conditional freedom, to the future, to unconditional worth, to internal freedom. Isn't that a worthy goal? Isn't that a worthy goal that we can all collaborate and lead the next generation to? That excites me. So now, how do we reclaim our worth? If we have all been wired and neurologically, at some degree, been conditioned to prove, perfect, and perform, how can we now replace this old wirings? Well, we literally have to replace and rewire in our brain. Because the first part of it is that we have to reevaluate where we feel as though our worth is actually being compromised. And having an awareness is like breaking out of a prison. Because I love this quote over and over again from Vernon Howard, and I have it here, is that you can't escape a prison unless you know you're in one. So the first thing we need to do to reclaim our worth is that we need to reevaluate our worth, because we might not know that we're self-sabotaging our worth, and we don't know that the way our boss is treating us, the way our children's treating us, the way our husband's treating us, we're not holding them accountable because we don't know what we deserve. So the first step is really awareness. The second step is that we need to rewire a new image of ourselves. And maybe the old image was the image of somebody who was proving pleasing in order to deserve that attention. We need now to rewire a new image of ourselves. The third one is to rebuild new skills. Because skills help us protect our worth. Because I can tell you I'm worthy, but if I don't know how to hold people accountable as a skill set and to communicate that effectively, I will get pummeled pretty easily. Okay? So number one, we have to reevaluate our worth, and it begins with us. This is why I give you a bunch of PDF to ask you questions, to see patterns. And you have to go through all those PDFs and go through them and check where the pattern is. Now, we only look to our past as a compass. We don't beat a dead horse. We don't blame our past. Rather, we create a vision for who we choose to be. And we're going to work on that moving forward. Number two, we're going to rewire a new self-image. We're actually going to say, you know what? I want January Donovan to be internally free. This is what the whole entire month is where I'm going to train you how to create a new self-image for yourself. I'm going to teach you what self-image is from a very, very deep understanding. And then I'm going to teach you how to build a new self-image where we can design that you that's not conditional to the external circumstances that the world tells you you need to be. And so this is what we're going to do, is that just like you don't build a house without a blueprint, right? We're going to build you with a blueprint. We're going to first design it. We're going to first live in our vision. I am a woman of vision. That's what I want you to say. And we're going to design that beautiful soul and that beautiful woman, not based on the physical, but based on the totality of you and an integrated of you. And we're going to design you. We're going to create the process of how to visualize and actualize through skill set who you're going to be for the world. right? Isn't that exciting? And number three, we're going to build your skill set because skills is so critical. And skill set, for example, looks a lot like decision-making skill, commitment, effective communication, learning to dream, learning to collaborate. These are skills because you can tell yourself and wire yourself you're worthy, but if you don't know how to make a commitment, okay, you can't protect your worth. Because what happens is that if you're not committed, is that people around you are going to see you as a flawed. People around you are going to say, oh, you're not reliable. And that's going to reconfirm the fact that you don't feel valuable. Honoring your commitment, I'm just giving you an example, allows you to say, you know what? I am capable. I can complete something. I am competent. And so what that does is it actually protects our worth. So we need to learn skill after skill after skill. There's no way around it, right? It's almost like if Michael Phelps or somebody was saying, you know, I want to be the best Olympian in the world, and you never work on your skill sets, for example, like a gymnastic. Well, that's silly. You can say that all day long and you can whine, you can believe, but if you never work on the skill, it doesn't matter. Or I'm going to be 30 pounds less and I'm going to be so healthy and full of energy. If you don't go to the gym, it doesn't matter. So these are skills, okay? Here's the things, 3 truths I need you to understand to rewire about your worth. Number 1, your worth is given and not earned. It was given. It was given by God. And you don't have to argue with it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It was just given. So it does not need to be earned. Here's your script. My worth was given, not earned. I no longer need to prove, perform, and protect myself. I'm worthy regardless. That's what you say to yourself. So you can write this script, if this is something that you struggle with, and put it in your script board and your vision board. Put it in your index card. Number 2, my worth is objective. It's not subject to other people's opinion of me, including my opinion of me. Here's your script. My worth is not subject to others' opinion of me, including my own opinion of me. I am objectively good. And so you just wire that over and over again. And then we're going to build this skill set. Okay? Number 3, every woman is equally worthy of the abundant life. And I call it the 5 stars. We're worthy of good. We're worthy of appreciation and affection. And so here's your script. Every woman is equally worthy. She's beautiful and I can learn from her. So now what you're rewiring is that you see other women's worth, because that same measuring cup they see other women is the same measuring cup they see of yourself. So by seeing your worth, you actually see other women's value. And that's why we compete and compare, because we do not see our value, therefore we do not see other women's value. It's massively important for us to understand this, ladies. It is the same measuring cup that we hold of ourselves and we hold of other women. So here's your rewire formula. You're going to read, recite, repeat, and retreat. You're going to read your script. You're going to write it in an index card and you're going to read it every day. You're going to recite it, which means you actually have to vocalize, you can hear yourself. And then you're going to repeat it. You're going to write it. Okay, you're going to write and repeat it. And then you're going to just retreat and meditate. And you're just going to imagine yourself to be that woman. Okay, so you read, recite, repeat, retreat. Actually, we're going to add and write in there. And I want you to really write it because neurologically, it actually changes our brain, the hand-brain connection. And so you're going to say your scripts. So you're going to rewire your worth. And at the same time, we're going to continue to build our skill set. Awesome. Awareness, exercise. So I'm going to go through some of the exercise here with you. And this is important because the exercise I'm going to give you are really because you can't escape a prison unless you know you're in one. And this is by Vernon Howard. I love this because it's really the first step to transformation is you becoming aware of where the prisons are in your mind and in your heart, where you've really self-sabotaged your worth and where your worth has been so conditional that it created a prison around your dreams, around your possibilities, around your relationships. So here's what I'm going to need you to do, ladies. Okay, I'm going to walk you through this quickly. On the left is a blank template. On the right, I'm going to give you a sample of it. Okay, and so this is now proving your script here. I want you to write your own script. I want you to be masterful at constantly writing scripts for yourself, so you learn it as a skill set, and that way you do it for a lot of things in your life, because the things that I'm training you here are the foundation for you to build your future upon and you build your decision upon. So I'm going to give you an example and then I'm going to walk you through it. Okay. So this is really important. Is what we're going to do is that we're going to create distinctions, and distinctions is really a form of intelligence. And what we're going to do is to make sure that other people's opinion, even including our own, we don't collapse as our opinion. We're going to create distinction that we are worthy regardless of. Okay, so I call this a distinction script, and I'm going to continue to talk about distinctions as we move forward. And so here's your sample script for proving. So we replace this bad neurological habit of proving our worth. I make the best choice for myself based on what I love and desire because I do not have to prove my worth. I am worthy regardless of my choice because I'm free to fail. And so, ladies, write your own script, or you can use mine for now, but write something that's going to matter to you. So here's how this all evolved. And I want you to see patterns. Let's just say your family. People sometimes make career choice because it's what their dad wants or this is what their mom wants. So conditional would look a lot like, I affirm you, I'm sorry, I affirm you, this is actually replace, I am sorry here. Unconditional is that, conditional would be, I am trying to prove my acceptance by doing what my dad likes. So you're making a career choice because you know that's what your dad wants and you're trying to win you're trying to prove something to them. Conditional would be your family saying, I affirm you regardless of your career choice. Another example would be your friends, comparison. And so unconditional would be you're trying to, I'm sorry, it's actually switched, and that's why I'm getting confused here, is that it's unconditional if you're just trying to encourage your friends. But what happens is that if our worth is on the line, we're always trying to one up everyone. Are you around friends who, you say something and everything goes back to them? Oh, you know what my grandmother is? Oh, you should see what my grandmother did, right? We're always trying to one up because we feel as though we need to prove ourselves and our stories are better. Spouse, how do you, let me see here, so I can move my cursor because I can't read. Spouse is that have to do, what do you have to do to own? What do you have to do on my own, right? Which means that unconditional is that I'm always trying to win conditional is that I'm always trying to win their appreciation. Unconditional is that I am free regardless. I am free not to have it all together. I don't have to have it all figured out. I can fail. And that's really important for us to recognize that if we've been conditioning our spouse that we have to have it all together and I can do it on my own, I have it all together, well, that's exhausting, right? So the next thing here is produce, okay? And so here's your script. I am worthy regardless of what I'm able to produce. I give my best because my worth does not need to be earned. And usually this comes from us maybe producing an A. We need to get an A, and that's what, our family, as a student, my parents shamed me, labeled me. If I don't get a good A, I only get appreciated if I was an A student. I only get a reward if I was an A student. Unconditional would mean that I feel attention and admiration regardless if I get an A and B. Your grade doesn't determine you. I tell my children all the time, say, listen, I want you to work your hardest, but whatever you produce, it does not make me love you less or more. But I want you to work your hardest. Or your boss is critical of you and she chews you out in front of everyone and you don't say anything, right? And so unconditional would be, I am worthy of your respect regardless of my production boss. And so you can actually talk to them that way and say, I'm sorry, please don't chew me in front of everyone. That's really rude. I make mistakes. I'm going to make it better. And I'm sorry really for that. But please don't criticize me in front of everyone. And we should be able to say that to our boss. Our spouse, here we go again, is that, you're only worthy if you contribute money. And so conditional, the spouse is unkind to me when I don't put my half of the share. Well, what if we had a bad week? What if we're really stressed about trying to make ends meet? The unconditional would be he understands me and supports me in certain seasons of my life. It's not dependent on what I can produce. All right. So create your own script, remember. And so now we're going to perform. I will perform my best without knowing that whatever the outcome is, I continue to deserve acceptance and appreciation, acknowledgement, right? And so let's just say, for example, your dad, give an example. You want to prove to your dad or you want to perform the best for your dad. Conditional would be your dad, you lose a game and your dad is cold and sarcastic and gives you the cold shoulder. Or unconditional would be, I love you anyway, regardless of how you performed. Because this, remember ladies, this is now, if this is a pattern that we've experienced from our family life in our elementary years and our teenage years, because what I want you to see are patterns, it's now buried in our subconscious mind. And so we want to see where we can replace these patterns. Our boss, we have to create a project, and there's no acknowledgement. I mean, it's not okay. And we should be able to say, listen, boss, I don't know how well I'm doing, and I don't know if you approve of what I'm doing, but I need some acknowledgement here, right? So, and if you make a mistake, unconditional would be, you know what? They're kind to your mistakes, and that's okay if you make a mistake, and that they're not you're not stressed because you're making a mistake because your worth is so dependent on your performance. And how many people are overworked, overtired because their work depends on the performance and their boss is pressuring them. And sometimes it might even be a nice boss. But they're pressuring to a point where any kind of mistake or any kind of false performance really cuts into their worthiness. And they feel like they're entitled to this entire human being that they can just corrupt because their work is their performance is so determined on our worth. And we have to acknowledge that ourselves. Our partners, maybe, let's just say your intimate moment, it's like you're only loved when you perform what they please in an intimate level. I mean, that's not okay, right? Because sometimes so many women who are pregnant and they don't want to be intimate because they're just feeling kind of blah. And our partner should love us regardless. But if these are something, if our worthiness, our love and appreciation, affection, and attention is always contingent on performance, I mean, that gets really exhausting, ladies. Okay, pleasing. I'm going to wrap this up real quickly here. I know I'm good. I am good. I know I'm good now, worthy of contributing my light to the world. I do not need to please the people around me, rather contribute from a place of freedom. And I'm sorry for that typo. I'm going to change that. Okay, so from our families, let's just say your sibling, trying to win each other's attention, right? Let's just say you have an older sister and you grew up with an older sister, and conditional would be you're trying to be cool to please your sister so that you can be liked. Or the unconditional would be, you know what? I honor myself and I am free. I don't depend on my sister for affirmation. But if we grew up trying to prove ourselves to our siblings, that gets wired in our brain to please our sisters. And now we're pleasing our boss, now we're pleasing our spouse. You see the patterns? Okay, our friends, we don't say anything. We kind of keep quiet. So, I don't really want to go drinking, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want to upset them. Well, we've been conditioned maybe not to say anything. Unconditional would be your friends. You're free to say what it is that you say, you know what, I'm not really in right now. I don't appreciate that, or I don't like it, and I don't want to partake in it, and that's okay. But if we had friends that were also toxic, they wired into our subconscious mind, having to prove ourselves, having to please them, having to please everyone else. Oh, you're so bad. You're so lame. You're not joining us. How many times do we walk in toxic relationships and friendships? Right? The boyfriend, there's no accountability. Boyfriend was sarcastic and we don't say anything. No, boyfriend is sarcastic. Unconditional would be, you know what? I don't appreciate you saying that, because we know our value. And so what we need to understand here is that we need to replace the patterns of where our worth was conditional so that we don't repeat the same pattern and we walk into unconditional worthiness, and we can say to our boyfriend, our friends, our family, no, that's actually not okay. I don't need to please you. I don't need to prove myself. I think I'm good as I am. Now I'm going to do my best self, and I'm going to do it not because I have to please you, but because I know it is good. Now I want to work my hardest to be successful in my career as a mom, not because I have to please everyone else, but because I know that's what's best for me. That's the distinction I want you to create, because we need to be striving for excellence. But our excellence and in the climb to striving, it should never be motivated by us pleasing, perfecting, and proving to everyone else around us, because that's where the lion comes in and the stress comes in. That's where we start to condition our worth and everyone else's thing. Because then when we're striving for success, when we're striving to be a really good mom, when we're learning new habits, the reality is that we fail. The reality is that we make mistakes and that we don't do it right the first, second time. And so if we know we are worthy regardless of our production, if we perform, if we please, that we're good, then we don't have to spend our lifetime having to compensate for the external world. So what I want for you is to not compensate. I want you to rewrite a script, and the script is what you're going to use to rewrite your brain. And now here's perfect. I work hard on becoming my best self, but it does not mean I am less worthy when I am less perfect. I am free to be brave. I am free to be me. Isn't that great? We don't need to be perfect. This is where our friends, the body shaming, we don't feel lovable because we're 30 pounds overweight, and all of a sudden mothers don't feel good about who they are because they're postpartum depression. No, I'm working hard to care for my body. It doesn't need to be perfect, and I don't need to lose weight overnight to prove to myself that I can do it. Or our family, we don't need to pretend. We don't need to ask we don't need to pretend. We don't ask for help because we don't want them to see that we're weak or that we're imperfect. Unconditional with that, I'm free to ask for help because I'm not judged for being weak. And that's unconditional. Our spouse is, we're in this place of exhaustion because we're always trying to be perfect for them. Our home needs to be perfect. Our children to be perfect. Our spouse come home from work and the kids are a mess. We feel as though something's wrong with us. No, the kids are just having a bad day and we don't internalize that. But who creates a distinction? You do. Because we cannot command what we don't believe we deserve. And so when your spouse is making you feel bad, because why aren't the kids a mess and they're crying, you say, well, honey, the house was really clean and I did this today and I spent all this time to them and they're just cranky and you can help me and I need your help. Not, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, I'm so messy. And you're trying to protect yourself and you're trying to say, yeah, I'm so sorry, I feel bad. We're just trying to perfect, and then we create monsters in the people around us when we don't hold them accountable. And so what you say is that you permission to be tired. Babe, I'm really tired today. I need a recalibration. Can you take over? Great, right? We know what we deserve. We know how to take care of ourselves. This is so connected to self-care, which is a lot like self-worth protection. People have all these things about self-care, and when you do this, what I believe self-care is protecting our worthiness. And so having time for yourself, holding people accountable, having some reprieve time is not this self-love that's look at me. No, it's protecting our value so we can continue to thrive. All right, ladies. So what I want you to do is to go through these exercises and start to create patterns and start to see maybe what are the patterns of your past where you're trying to prove your worthiness. And then I want you to go back into your scripts of rewiring your worth, and it was up there, and start to now chant yourself, my worth is earned, was given, not earned. My worth is objective, and everyone is equally worthy. And you start to rewire that in your brain as we build new skills. Now we're going to replace the conditional worth that we have been programmed for years to unconditional worth. Okay. And so the only thing I really want you to do here is to look at the patterns, because now you can see where the prisons are when we start and begin to build our self-image. Okay. Because next week we're going to talk about self-image. We're going to start designing a woman. We're going to start looking at our attitude, how we show up in the world. And it's all so fun and exciting. But we first need to tackle the fact that if we do not understand our value and our worthiness and rewire into our brain that we deserve all that is good and beautiful, that we are worthy of acceptance, appreciation, affection, acknowledgement, and admiration, regardless of our performance, regardless of what we can prove, perfect, and perform, that we are objectively good, I need you wiring that in the 95% of your brain. The only way we're going to do that is through the rewire formula, reduce, our repeat, retreat. You actually have to internalize your worth. Okay. This is a lot of actually internal work that I'm just giving you this month, because what I always do is do this before we can rebuild the woman. Okay. And that's what we pretty much did. And this exercise here is a lot of kind of going back down your memory lane in a way where we want to be able to use it as a compass for our future. And the reason, truly, ladies, why we want to be able to use it as a compass for the future is because we owe it to the next generation. Okay, we owe it to the next generation to change the freedom crisis that we have. And I want you to be the leading women that are going to walk us into unconditional worth, that's going to give women internal freedom. Is that just a wonderful and noble, worthy cause for the future? Yes. Thank you so much for watching, ladies. I am so grateful for you. This is your guide, January Donovan. Thank you, and go do your homework, and let's change the world together.